Bueno, buenos días.
Good morning. My name is Diego Scaffo, and I work in research and development at GeneXus. Today, we are going to discuss the ecosystem that has been formed around conversational interfaces that appeared with a lot of strength these last times and has led to new concepts and services that may be a bit confusing. So we are going to bring them down to earth and define things better. And then in the next presentations, you will see how we do these interfaces with GeneXus. Before the event with Sebastian Gomez, we found a video that we thought was very interesting that we would like to share with you.
Muy bien.
This video belongs to KLM, which is a Dutch airline that is participating in a WhatsApp pilot program, which is a WhatsApp verifiable business account. What they are doing is to analyze new ways of connecting business with people. And the only thing that the person did was to ask about the flight status or change the seat, and automatically he got the reply saying that the seat had been changed. So this is a chatbot, and it's very good, but in order to have something like this, firstly, we have to know how they operate it and what is required to have one of these chatbots in operation. So you may ask me, are you going to tell me what a chat is? And I'm going to say yes, because the definition is going to change when we get to the chatbots. I was looking for references and I found out that a chat is communication between two or more people. And it's the first definition that you found if you look it up on the internet. Now, the communication that we have all the time in WhatsApp, because we have several groups, workplace, the university, our friends, family. Well, they fulfill their purpose when someone else reads them, but this information that we send stays in our device. And what happens is that we have many contacts, we create a lot of information, you use it all the time, but something's missing. A typical case. Let's say that we want to organize some kind of event, a football match, or invite people. We take the WhatsApp and we start drawing up a list. And we say on Friday at 7, we can do such and such a thing. And two people say, I can go, and one says, I can't. And you copy paste with the list, and nothing happens. But it would be good to have behind something that can interpret what we are doing, understand it, and draw the list automatically. Let's say that it's a football match and we are 10, and at that time the WhatsApp tells us, well, now you can book the court. And that's the concept of the bots. Why have they become so important? Because this software has been conceived in order to automate actions. So if we bring together the chats and the bots, we can automate actions because they recognize or interpret what's going on in a conversation. In the video we just saw, for example, the person communicates with the airline and makes a consultation about the flight status or the seat. So we have to start thinking of the chatbots and see what we can expect from them. We cannot expect a natural behavior. The person asked KLM whether the seat could be changed, and they said, yes, it has been changed. Actually, it is a natural behavior in this case, because the reply was, yes, your seat has been changed. So the bot, when we communicate with it, should feel as if it's a person. When we make a mistake, it should guide us and make us understand we have made some mistake, or when it doesn't know what to do, it can tell us, I don't know, but I can do this other thing. Therefore, turn this conversation in something more productive. Secondly, it should have practical uses. If we use the messaging platform we use, we can communicate with the bot, and it's more practical than what we are used to. And finally, they offer integration with popular platforms that we normally use. So let's see how we talk to our bots. We have a bot, and how can users communicate with it? There are several platforms out there that allow integration with bots. These are the examples like Twitter and Skype and WeChat, etc. And one of the things that is very important when you select a platform for a chatbot is think of the users we target. For example, if it's a Chinese market, we are going to use WeChat. And if it's the US market, well, we choose the platform that is dominating the market at the time. But chatbots don't only live on the basis of these networks. They can be integrated to our own systems. And a popular case would be Siri and also Cortana, which are integrated in the operating systems. Cortana with Windows and Siri. If you ask Siri whether he knows Cortana, well, you will see that the replies are fun. And here we have introduced Rudy and Clarita. Rudy is integrated to the events application and is familiar with the agenda, the location of the rooms, etc., and will reply to the questions. And Clarita is in the consultation stations in the different hotel floors. So in order to communicate with a chatbot, we can consult with these messaging platforms, or we can have them in our own systems. We are familiar with the chatbots, but if I were you, I would ask myself, how can they understand us? How can they interpret what I am asking? And this is when we get to natural language processing, which is actually a branch of artificial intelligence. which analyzes the interaction between computers and people in spoken language. So it's a very limited definition. It's a branch of a certain science. But we can bring this definition to more practical terms, and we would go back to school for this purpose. Let's say that we say we want to buy 2 red t-shirts. When we went to school, we were taught to analyze sentences. They had a subject, a predicate, and a verb, we were told, and we were taught how to identify them. We can say that we is the subject, and the predicate is to buy 2 red t-shirts. And the main verb here would be buy. This is something we can all do. But we wonder, how can a bot analyze this sentence? And this will depend on how the different services to process natural language apply these actions. Firstly, they must identify the user's intention, how the user expresses what he or she wants to do. And then the different entities to which the user refers have to be identified. The entities are the objects that the bot has to recognize. So in this case, the intent of the user is to buy something, and the verb is here. And the other entities that the bot identified were the quantity, which is 2 in this case, also the color, and finally the products that have been named, which are the t-shirts. So now we know how the bot interprets us, but who are the providers of the possibility of making this interpretation and offering this service? For example, Regastai or Azure. But I'm going to show you the examples that we have analyzed in depth in order to know better what I'm talking about. So we're going to talk about Watson Conversations, API, and Amazon Lex. So let's start with Watson Conversation. This is an IBM service on which Rudy is based. This service gives us the possibility to define with an IDE the intentions that our bot will be able to recognize. And for each one of these intentions, we are going to give examples so that it can be trained. For example, buy, or I want such and such a thing. These are the examples that we are going to give so that it can be trained. And then we are going to define the entities that the bot is going to handle. So we have the entities that we mentioned earlier, products, for example, that can be trousers or t-shirts. So Watson will allow us to define this and also the model of the dialogue. If there are going to be different nodes for each part of the conversation, and also the context that is going to be handled. What do I mean by context? You are here in this presentation, and you came at 9 a.m. to a presentation called Conversational Ecosystem. And if we asked for the name of the presenter, well, we probably don't know. Because when we are having this conversation, we know which context we are at. And for the bot, it's the same thing. It has to know the context in which it stands. And for the following question, the question after I want to buy 2 red t-shirts, the bot knows who wants to make the purchase and why, and then it will send a confirmation message, and the dialogue thus will be fluent. With Watson, we also have the possibility of doing a deploy. deploying our bot through Slack and probably afterwards through Messenger and Facebook. Another service we have analyzed is this one that was bought by Google. The difference is that it allows us to define intentions and the entities that are going to be managed. And the dialogue will be based on the definition of intentions. We won't have a tree that defines the nodes, but instead, inside each intention, we are going to define which are the data that have to be asked to the user. If the person says, I want to buy something, then we define the kind of product, the quantity, the user, and the color, the product, etc. And the user will be asked about this information. And for several platforms, Messenger, etc., this API can be used. It allows us to define at which point in time it's going to communicate with our server, whether slot by slot, every time a piece of information is requested, or when the intention is completed. And then Lex from Amazon, which functions in a similar way when it comes to defining intentions and entities, but its feature is that it's completely integrated to the services of Amazon Web Services, and it's easier to use because the system is deployed in Amazon. Now, I tell you all this, and you're probably wondering which is the best one. And in fact, the best one will depend on the project you are developing and many variables that are related to the development of your project. So we can simplify the architecture of each one. In the case of Watson, for example, you need to go through your server constantly because you want to storage all of the messages and you want to keep some skills in the system. And in that case, Watson is the best option because it will be going through the server constantly. Now, if we want something that will allow us to delegate the communication between the client and the supplier, we can use AI, which will communicate directly with its service. And as we said, API.AI will define when it's going to communicate with the server. If we want to know, for example, whether the t-shirts are in stock, it's going to consult one of our services in order to know what reply to give to the user. And finally, Lex, which is the best option if we are in Amazon. It communicates directly with Lambda that executes codes in the cloud. Gonzalo Balotti is going to speak about this engine, or has spoken already about this engine. The presentation is online. And it also has some difference with regard to the architecture, but we have to take into account what these three have in common. As we said before, they are based on a model that identifies intentions and entities. We also said that they all allow us to send messages. We have an API that allows us to send messages, and they are going to process the message and return a reply that shows that they detected the entities and the values. We can also import their structures. We can have somewhere a file with their structure and their definitions in order to upload it or download it and have some backing. And they also allow us to consume their services in order to update or modify the values of the entities and the intentions. Now that we've seen this simplification of the architecture, you may have noticed that there is a change because there's always something in between. And what we have in between is the interpretation by the bot. So traditionally, we've seen that we push a button and something happens.
If I push a button to eliminate one registry, I'm eliminating data in a database. I'm saying I want to buy something and I push a button and something happens on the other side. Now, in this case, we have a change in the concept, in the relationship of this between the backend and the user's interface. We have this new model where I say something, something is interpreted, and does something happen? Yes. We need to be well trained. If I talk about being trained, means I need to define the right intentions that the bot will manage. We need examples so that there's no confusion, so that we don't repeat intentions. And we also need to define the entities it will manage and their values that will be referenced. With these providers, we can talk with our own IDEs, with the bot, to know how far the training has gone, so that when we talk to them, we can check whether he's understanding what's going on. If I say, I want to buy something, he should not interpret, I want to greet you. Something that we can correct right away, detect a problem, and clarify what is it that we define. That's a more tuned up relationship. If we have a sales channel and the chatbot does not understand what people want to buy, that will be a problem. The interface is not working. Now, on the other hand, if it is well trained, we'll have the fact that we have created a new interface that's very attractive to people. When people try it, they like it, they use it intensely, they send lots of messages, they become addicted in a way. People like that. I'm not saying remove everything you have and simply use chatbots. I'm just saying this is a complement. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but today it could be a good complement. It's an opportunity for innovation. If we have a tuned-up training, we can get something interesting. Now, we'll have a break, and then we will continue with more conversational interfaces, how GeneXus does it. Thank you for your attention.